Well, we've eulogized the past, we've lamented the present. The task, however, is to build a sustainable future. So, I'm going to spend just a few minutes on drawing some principles on the basis of which we can try and build a sustainable future for Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. And I'm going to disappoint every one of you by saying what we need is GDP growth. But, because I can see the economic students are laughing, GDP is not gross domestic product. GDP for Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh stands for green, digital and participatory. Green, digital and participatory. I'm going to take 1 minute in describing each of these terms because they are not just their obvious meanings. Green is not just green as in trees and plants and agriculture and all of that, but it's everything to do with the environment, including renewable energy solutions, particularly solar, which was mentioned in the context of Ladakh. That's all part of green. Ecotourism is also green. Spirituality and the mountain way of living is also green. So everything which is based on a non-material or sustainable use of nature to support human life while being respectful of all other species is green. So that is the criterion we need to lay down by which we will assess each and every developmental proposal. Second, why digital? For all their greatness, one of the problems that mountains, and including mountain people, Sonamla, face is that they suffer from a sense of remoteness. They feel they are at a distance. But just as you turned America on its head and said they need to learn from Delhi and Delhi needs to learn from Ladakh, if Ladakh is remote from America, actually America is remote from Ladakh, right? So it's a matter of relativity. What is the center of your universe? So now, one of the best ways in our times, in the late 20th century, has been to transcend distances. We've got this wonderful thing called telecommunications, whose power has dramatically increased because of combining digital technologies with old-style analog telecom technologies. And as a result, today we have the ability to transcend distances for almost anything other than things for which physical transportation is required, which are, as you said, if we adopt a low consumption, material consumption lifestyle, in any case, you pretty much freed yourself from that constraint also. So once you take a digital view of the world, you're not remote. You're at the center of your universe, and your YouTube videos, which are so widely watched, is an example of, that centrality that digitalness gives you. At the same time, digitalness is also our claim on the new commons, because all the old commons, whether it is land or water or forests, have been appropriated either by state or by individual people who have the capital. But the digital commons are still, although efforts are getting made towards that also, but by and large the digital commons are still broadly available, thanks also to the very special architecture of an early innovation called internet. The internet is unlike any other human institution that is created. It's a network, it's not an organization. And because it's a network, it follows Metcalfe's law, which is that the power of the network goes up as a square of the number of nodes in it. But the other properties of the internet that you need to think of, which are special, is that each node, while it is precious, it is completely dispensable. Each node, while it is autonomous, it has little value if it is a lone ranger. Each node generates its own source of power. it has its own energy. It has the ability to receive, to process, and to transmit and store. Once a node has these abilities and networks with the other nodes, you get the power of the internet. The great thing is you can kill one node or 10 nodes, the internet is still always alive. So the new generation of institutions that we need to create for J, K, and L have to have some of the properties of the internet. Each panchayat, for example, or whatever you call them in local languages, has to be autonomous and yet interdependent, has to have its own source of energy, ideas, its ability to process and transmit knowledge, and yet they work together to create a power of the whole. And that's why when you talked of something like a Schedule 6 status for Ladakh, it's extremely important because that gives an overall protective umbrella. The P is participatory, and its characteristics are first, it's people-based, and people means obviously largely local people, and therefore the local priorities, the local wisdom, the local problems are the ones that get amplified in the discussions. B, it is place-based, so that specific solutions to each geography come up. So if we make any generic statement about J&K, it's laughable because within J&K there is such diversity. And if you put Ladakh in that same basket, then you have incredible diversity. And it's not possible to actually talk in terms of generic solutions. So they have to be place-based, people-based, and therefore participatory solutions. Now, if we adopt these three principles and say that the development, the sustainable future of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh should be green, digital, and participatory, then do we have any examples where this was even tried? So I'm sorry, like you, I also got little notice for this conference. So I actually modified a speech I had made in believe it or not, 1997 in Gangtok in Sikkim. Only thing, I had called it Green and Digital Prosperity for Sikkim. Now, I've had the benefit since then to continuously work with the government of Sikkim in various capacities and to provide inputs. The member of parliament from there, Lok Sabha member, is my batchmate from both IIT and IIM. That was a coincidence. So one could have much greater access as well. But Sikkim is the closest mountain state within India, and its neighbor, which is an independent nation, Bhutan, the next, where we have at least some advancement in the matter of green and digital participatory development. I keep Bhutan out of this because there's a separate governance structure. Within India, there are a lot of lessons we can learn from Sikkim, and particularly for Ladakh, Sonamla. Sikkim's population is 6 lakh, yours is 3 lakhs. You know, there's a lot of things that are similar, and I know, of course, there are a lot of things that are different, but some exchange program, and largely digital, by the way, would be very useful. You know, we no need to take people up and down in aeroplanes of all the things, you know, increase the carbon footprint. In all of this, one of the things that we forget is the role of capital. You know, there's this assumption that at the end of any fat report on development, the last line is, and the government may consider making suitable budgetary provisions for the above suggestions. And that immediately gets marked by the departmental secretary or the minister to the finance secretary, and he puts it in the lowest shelf of the cupboard in the back. And that's the end of the story, because as you know, the nation is suffering from a fiscal deficit. Every state is suffering from a fiscal deficit. And we don't really have also a track record of government using whatever fiscal resources they have very efficiently for development. And therefore, we need to think of alternate ways of generating capital. But we'll be making a mistake, and since you worked in SEBI, sir, we'll be making a mistake if we think of capital, and economists, please note, capital is not just financial capital. In fact, financial capital is the last form of capital. The original capital was natural capital. Even before Homo sapiens came on this earth, there was natural capital. Then came human capital, human beings, and their capability to do physical things, to think, all of that. But a single human being is utterly useless, can barely survive. Even to survive, they have to get together in a family, a clan. And therefore, we have to very quickly build something called social capital, whose building blocks are things like trust, things like, in a more formal way, contracts, norms, customs, organizations, laws, regulations. It gets more and more sophisticated. So, only when we get the application of aggregated human capital in the form of social capital to natural capital, you can generate anything called physical capital. And only when the physical capital generates any surplus do you get anything called financial capital. The problem is that by the time we reach the 20th century, this had been done for so long that we have so much of financial capital, but in so few hands that it's sloshing around, misbehaving, and creating a lot of problems for the other four forms of capital: natural, human, and social. May not be much for physical. We can see its impact on the environment, we can see its impact on society, we can see its impact on human beings. So, one of the correctives we have to make in the development of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh is to, first of all, think in terms of all the 5 capitals and not just financial capital. All plans must talk in terms of, when you talk about balanced development, Ashok, it has to be balanced development of all these 5 forms of capital and not this incredibly tumorous development of financial capital, cancerous, that has happened. And therefore, local resources, the incredible value of natural resources, the incredible value of social capital, whether it's in the form of traditions, creativity, way of thinking, way of living, all of that needs to be thought of as capital. And the moment you do that, you are actually dealing with some extremely rich states. It's a joke to think that Kashmir is a 30,000 crore economy. Yes, it's a 30,000 crore economy because we are thinking of GDP in the rotten economic sense of the term. If you think of GDP in terms of the 5 social capitals, you're dealing with some of the richest parts of the world. So, with some of these design principles, I would offer, the services of the Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Contemporary Studies, that as we take this task further, that we'd be happy to convene a working group or more than one working group to think about a sustainable future for Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, and then eventually have such a conference, one in Srinagar, one in Jammu, and one in Leh, to take that plan back to the people. At the moment, we are doing this in Bastar, by the way. We started a Jan Prerit Lok Yojana way back in April. Its draft was presented to the people on 2nd October. And at the moment, it's being discussed in all the 5 districts in which Bastar broke up: Dantewada, Sukma, Vijaypur, Narayanpur, and Jagdalpur. And on 26th January, we will make it into a truly people's plan, There, unfortunately, we are not as strong on green and digital because it's part of the Indian juggernaut. But I hope we can do this in Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh. Thank you so much.